Rough puff pastry. What we have here is some flour, which I'm going to sieve onto the cold marble, some cold chopped butter, and some ice cold water with a squeeze of lemon juice. Rough puff pastry is similar to puff pastry but without the defined layering. Some people can call it flaky pastry. About 30 years ago it was called Scotch puff pastry. First thing I'm going to do is to sieve the flour onto the cold marble. Make a well in the centre. Add the butter. Now the secret to this recipe is all the ingredients need to be cold, and make sure you don't overwork the butter. If you overwork the butter, you won't get the defined layering we're needing. So just a gentle rub in, and what really you're looking for is the dough, which is made from the water and the flour, the lemon juice, and the butter separate. And the butter needs to be woven through almost like a mosaic into the dough. And once you start to fold and turn and make the layers, that butter dough layer relationship will start to build. That's the essence of puff pastry. Okay, just a light rub. Okay, that's good enough. As you can see, we still have reasonably sized chunks of butter left in the flour. The next stage is to make a well in the centre. Add the water and lemon juice. And don't overwork the flour on this. So just gentle movements, just to bring it all together to a loose dough. Like so. And the next stage is to form it to a workable dough. Now the dough's come together, as you can see, it's flecked with pieces of butter. The next stage is to roll it out to an oblong, almost like an open book. Keeping the edges as square as possible. We're going to give this one turn, and it will receive 3 turns in all. Now it's been rolled, dust the surface to remove excess flour. This will help adhere the folds together. Turn it over, repeat the process, and then fold the end to 2/3 away from you, and then back to the end. Now that's had what we call one turn. I'll just put my finger in the centre to signify it has one turn. We'll allow that to rest for 30 minutes in the refrigerator and then repeat the process. Now the rough puff pastry has been resting in the fridge now for 30 minutes. We're going to turn it so the folded side is facing up, the open ends are away and towards you, and then repeat the process as before. A buck effect. Try and ensure an even roll. This again will help with the layers. Again, a little dust off. Turn over. 2/3, back, and that's had 2 turns. Goes back in the fridge for another 30 minutes to rest before we roll for our final turn. Now the rough puff pastry has been rested for the last 30 minutes, we're ready for the last roll. So again, folded side up, as you can see the joints here, and then roll carefully and evenly. This is the last roll this pastry is going to receive. For me, this is perhaps the most versatile pastry in the pastry chef's armoury. You can make mince pies out of this, it can flake, melt beautifully in your mouth. You can use it for most, if not all, puff pastry preparations, depending on what finish you're expecting. Great versatility. As you can see now, the butter is still there, it's forming layers, it's still cold enough to be away from the dough. Now I'm sure the ends are quite neat. Brush off any excess. 2/3 up, and then close. And just as a final rolling, just ensure all the joins and the folds are as tight as possible. That's rough puff pastry. Pop that in the fridge for another 30 minutes and it's ready to use. Now if I can give you an indication of how flaky and how well risen this is. Beautiful layering. As you can see, the layering of dough, the fat would sit in between these layers, create steam which would then aerate and push the dough apart. Beautiful puff pastry.